All right, in this video we are going to get things up and running. And to do that we need to override a few properties. So on the screen there you can see that I have the application-prod YAML file up. And this is self-generated by JHipster for us. So this is going to be enabled when we're running the production profile, which is exactly what we want to be doing, is to run the production profile. And you can see here it's got a lot of settings in here, and it's going to be looking for a MySQL database on localhost with using root privileges. Not something that we want to be doing because we did set up our RDS database. Now, a real cool thing about how Spring works is that we can override these properties using environment variables. And then the next question is going to be, well, how do we do that with Docker? There's actually several different ways of doing that with Docker. I do explore these a lot more in depth in my Docker course. I don't have time to, in this course, to really get in depth on that. But what I'm going to show you one way we can do that. And I've gone out and created an app.yaml file, and I heavily based it on here. Actually modified this one a little bit. I'll check that in for you. So this is also in the JHipster directory. So this is a Docker compose file, and this gives us the ability to set up a lot of the Docker parameters to run Docker images. Now, one thing we had to change is, remember, our Circle CI application is pushing our images up to Docker Hub. So under my Spring Framework Guru area on Docker Hub, we have the container RFB loyalty, or I should say the image RFB loyalty there. And what this is going to do is set up the profiles active, and this overrides some things here. And I added that in, and let's come over here and take a look at this one on the server. And you can see I'm still living dangerously using the root account. And I updated the Docker Compose version services. We're going to have an RFB loyalty app. Comes from the image Spring Framework Guru /RFB loyalty. Now the big thing here is the environment property. So we're still doing the Spring Profiles active prod and Swagger. Now the database, you can see here, I've changed the data source, the host, to the RDS instance that we set up, and also I changed the database that we're connecting to. So if we come back over here, remember we set up the database loyalty DB for us. Now, several different things that we can do here, but I did set the Spring JPA Hibernate DDL option to update. So that's going to go in and update the database for us. So there's a number of different ways that we could do this, but I'm going to allow it to go in and do the update. Actually, on second thought, I don't think I need to do that because we are using the liquid base here. So I am going to remove that and see if it behaves. So come in here, do a little VI update here on the fly. I don't think I need to do that. So I have not run this yet. And let's see here. I'm going to say verify. So that's going to verify the database structure. And you can see, remember, we set up the user account running for Brews and also the password running for Brews. Now, if I was doing this in a more production environment, I would create a service account for us to use, but for demonstration purposes here, this is good. And then you can see here in the last line here, we are doing the ports, and this is like the port mapping. So we're telling the Docker to expose port 8080 on the local host of port 8080. And that's important because if we didn't do this, port 8080 could be exposed inside the Docker container, but there's no mapping out of the Docker container through the Docker networking stack to the local host. So then Apache would not be able to get to it if we did not do this. So let's go ahead and escape. WQ for write and quit. Now we need to run this. And what we want to do is Docker compose -F for file. So we're going to do current directory app YAML, and now we'll just say up. Docker compose not found. So under OS X, when you install Docker, Docker compose is installed along with it. So we need to do a couple minor things here. So let's do a yum install. I'm looking at directions, so we need So I'm not even sure what that is, to be honest. It's a requirement for Docker Compose. And let's do a yum install. That also needs Python. You can see that's installing it. And that is installed successfully. Okay, so the Python, that's pip install docker compose. So that's why we need those two dependencies first. And the final step on the directions I'm looking at, say to upgrade Python. And we are up to date. So let's clear this. And see if this comes up now. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to pause this and get Docker updated. I thought we had a current version there. So let's go in and update Docker. Give me 1 second there. Okay, what happened here is when I did the original Docker installation, I just installed Docker, which is an old version. I need to say Docker CE. So I need to go through and uninstall Docker and then install Docker CE. So the community edition. So that was my mistake earlier in the course. So I'm going to correct that right now and show you the commands I'm going to use to correct that. So let's go ahead and so that's removing the system control link to start Docker as a service. So yum remove Docker removes it. So now let's clear this. So I am going off the instructions right off Docker's website, and we need to install a couple things here. So nothing to do there. And one of the things we need to do is basically add in another repo for the yum configuration. And these commands here, show you history here. Those last few commands there are basically setting up the yum package manager to see the Docker repositories. Now we can do yum install Docker CE, which is the version of Docker that we want. Okay, ran into a couple problems there, and what happened, I didn't completely remove the previous version of Docker, and I ran the history here to show you how I had to do a yum remove Docker client and yum remove Docker common 141 and 143, and then I was able to install Docker CE normally, so that is now installed and happy. So let's go in and try this guy again. Oh, no. Go reinstall Docker Compose 2. Let me pause this. Okay, ran into a couple minor problems there with Docker Compose. I had to reinstall it, and I think I blew away a couple files by mistake. I did a pip uninstall Docker Compose and then a pip install Docker Compose, and that seemed to fix it for me. So now if I do bang 158, Docker is up and happy. So let's do history again and see if we can actually get this to run. So let's do bang 149. All right, this is what we wanted to see now. Docker Compose is up, it's running, and it's pulling down the image, and we can see that the application is starting. And we can see that it's actually running now. And we see that we ran into an error. Scroll up here and see what happened. So we ran into a pause there, and it's looks like it's not connecting to the database. Timeout connection. So I'm going to pause this and correct the problem. Okay, I got the application started and running. Ran into two problems. One, I had to come into EC2 and add in the IP of the server. So that was a mistake. So I had to open up that IP so the server could connect to the RDS database in that security group. And then the second, when I restarted it, I'm going to shut it down right now. Let's see here. So I had to go in and I had set the DDL auto to verify. It should be validate rather than verify. So that was my mistake. So I had two mistakes there that I corrected to get it up and running. So now it is up and running. It connected and did bring up the database. So we can see, so we have some default content that got loaded for us. So that is the RDS database. You can see that I am running against the Amazon RDS database. So our Spring Boot application from Docker did connect okay and created the database. So the liquid base did go in, set up the database for us. The verify did pass, and our Spring Boot application loaded up data. So I apologize. We ran into a couple problems here. Might redo it, but I think I'm going to leave it in because you saw me run into some things and kind of an opportunity for you to see some things that I didn't plan on and how to work through them and correct them. So when you're rolling into production, things don't always go perfect. So I'll probably leave that in so that you can see the troubleshooting that I had to go through.